My name is Detective Pierce. I've been retired for almost 5 years now, though I still wake up before dawn. Old habits die hard. After the department pushed me into early retirement, I moved into a modest apartment downtown. 4th floor. Clean, quiet, affordable. A good place to fade out quietly. Or at least, that's what I thought. I first noticed it about a month after I moved in, the apartment directly across from mine. Number 4B. The door was plain, a little scuffed around the edges, with a small brass number that had started to tarnish. I never saw anyone go in or out. Never heard a voice. Never smelled cooking or cleaning products, or even cigarette smoke. Just nothing. That kind of silence has a weight to it. In a city like this, it feels unnatural. At first, I didn't pay it much attention. People come and go. Some like to keep to themselves. But then, one night around 2 a.m., I woke up to the faint sound of music. Not loud. Just a slow, muffled melody, something from another time. A waltz, maybe? It was coming from across the hall. I lay there listening, half asleep, until I realized how strange it was. The building's walls are thick. I can barely hear my own TV when it's on low. But that night, the music was clear, like it was being played right outside my door. When I finally stepped out into the hallway, it was empty. The light above flickered once and went steady again. The sound stopped. I remember standing there for a long minute, waiting for the music to start again, but it didn't. The door to 4B was closed. No light came from underneath. The next morning, I asked the building manager, a tired man named Ellis, about the tenant in 4B. He frowned, checked his clipboard, and said, "That unit's been vacant since last year. Maintenance issue with the wiring, still waiting on repairs." I told him I'd heard something. He gave me a polite nod, the kind that means you're imagining things, and went back to his paperwork. Vacant. But I'd heard the music. A few nights later, I heard it again. Same time. Same tune. This time, I stayed in bed and just listened. The melody would play for about 30 seconds, then stop. Silence. Then again. Always the same pattern. By the third repetition, I started to notice something else, a faint tapping sound, almost like someone walking slowly, heel first, down a wooden floor. Except the hall floors are concrete. I decided to record it. Old habits again. I left my phone recording near the door one night, waited for the music, then reviewed the audio the next morning. It was there, the tune, the faint echo of movement, but beneath it was something I hadn't noticed before. A whisper. Barely audible, buried under the hum of background noise. But when I boosted the volume, I could make it out. A man's voice, low and calm. Repeating the same word over and over. Stay. I listened to it maybe 20 times before I finally turned the recording off. I couldn't explain it. But I also couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few days, I found myself watching that door every time I left the apartment. The scuffed brass number, the keyhole, the little mail slot that hadn't been used in months. At one point, I thought I saw the faintest shadow move across the bottom of the door, like someone walking inside. But when I blinked, it was gone. I told myself I was tired. That I'd been alone too long, and my mind was inventing patterns out of boredom. And yet, the next night, when I came home late from a grocery run, I noticed something new. The light under 4B's door was on. Just a thin strip of yellow at the base, steady and warm, the kind of light that meant someone was definitely inside. I stood there for nearly a full minute, my bag of groceries starting to drip from the melting ice in my hand. Then the light flickered, once, twice, and went dark. When I turned the key to my apartment, I caught a faint sound behind me. the latch of a door clicking shut. I looked back. 4B was closed, as always. But this time, I could smell something faint in the air. Old perfume. Faint and floral. The kind that lingers long after someone's gone. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Even the sunlight crawling along the hallway walls didn't ease it. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. Buildings settle. Shadows stretch. Imagination plays tricks. But when I stepped out to the stairwell, I noticed something I hadn't before. The floor outside 4B had faint scuff marks. Tiny scratches on the paint, almost like someone had dragged shoes in circles. Too precise to be random. Too fresh to have been left before. I crouched down, brushing my fingers over them. They were warm. Not hot, but warm enough. I knocked on the door. No answer. The kind of silence that fills a hall, pressing in from all sides. I tried the knob. Locked. Of course. Then I noticed the mail slot, the small brass flap. It rattled slightly, as if someone had just breathed against it. My phone was in my hand, ready to record again. I pressed record and listened. Nothing at first. Then, faintly, the same tune from before. Slow, muffled, impossible to ignore. I pressed my ear closer to the door. Underneath the music, a faint shuffle. A sigh. A whisper. Stay. I stepped back. The sound stopped. My pulse was quick, but my hands were steady. I wasn't hallucinating. I circled the door, checking the frame. No scratches, no fingerprints beyond the usual wear. But I found something new. The keyhole was cold, unusually so. Almost as if it had been recently oiled. Later that night, I decided to watch. I sat in my apartment with the blinds open, a single lamp casting shadows, and my eyes fixed on 4B. Hours passed. Then I saw it. A flicker of movement behind the curtains. Slow, deliberate. Almost human. The light under the door flickered again. I froze. From the darkness came a sound, soft, almost like the scratching of fingernails on wood. Not from my door. From across the hall. I wanted to leave. I wanted to pretend it wasn't happening. But curiosity, that old instinct, kept me glued to the hallway. I watched for a long while. The door didn't open. The light stayed off. But the scratching continued intermittently. By the time I went to bed, I could hear the faintest echo in my apartment. The tune. Shuffling. And once more that whisper. Stay. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined the door opening slowly. A shadow stepping out. Someone, or something, waiting just across the hall. By morning, I had made a decision. I would enter 4B. The following afternoon, I returned with tools. A simple screwdriver. A flashlight. A notebook. I told myself I wasn't prepared for anything extraordinary, just needed to confirm that the apartment was empty. I approached 4B slowly. The hallway felt different in daylight, not lighter, just sharper. Every sound echoed, a distant door closing, the hum of the heater, my own footsteps. The keyhole was still cold. I tried the knob one more time. Locked. I slid the screwdriver into the latch carefully. A soft click, a faint give. The door opened. The apartment was small. Sparse. Empty. At first glance, nothing was wrong. The walls were beige, the carpet neutral, the air still and slightly musty. But then I noticed the floor. Footprints. Fresh footprints. Barefoot. Leading from the living room to the bedroom, then back again. Too small to be mine. I crouched, examining them. Imperfect, faint, as if someone had been walking very carefully. I followed the trail to the bedroom. The bed was neatly made. No signs of anyone sleeping there. No personal items. Yet the footprints continued past it, toward the bathroom. I checked the windows. Locked. Curtains drawn. No way out. The air smelled faintly of perfume, floral, like something left to linger, not freshly applied. I stepped further into the apartment. The music came first. Soft, distant. A melody faintly audible from nowhere. I spun in a circle, flashlight cutting through the dim light. The sound seemed to move with me, a slow, muffled waltz coming from every corner at once. Then I noticed it, the living room wall. A faint outline of a figure, pressed against the plaster. No shadow cast. Just the impression of someone standing there. I stepped closer. Nothing. Just the wall. I opened the kitchen cabinets. Empty. The fridge was cold, nearly empty. But the floor was warm. A faint tapping started again, slow, deliberate. Coming from the bedroom. I approached slowly, notebook in hand. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. Inside, a chair sat facing the wall. A chair that hadn't been there before, or at least I hadn't noticed it. I stepped closer. Nothing in it. Yet when I turned away, I could feel it, eyes on me. Not from the chair. Not from anywhere visible. Just on me. I backed out of the room, shutting the door slowly. The tapping stopped immediately. The music faded. I left the apartment as quietly as I could. Once in my own place, I locked the door behind me, triple-checking the bolt. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every settling sound of the building felt amplified. And once more, I heard the faintest whisper through my walls. Stay. It wasn't coming from 4B anymore. It was in my own apartment now. The following days blurred together. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, too little sleep, too much coffee, too much thinking. But the whisper never stopped. Sometimes faint, sometimes clear, always the same word. Stay. It came from nowhere specific. The walls. The vents. The floor. Sometimes, even from behind me when I knew I was alone. On the third morning, I noticed something new. The wallpaper near my front door was peeling slightly, just a corner. When I pressed my hand against it, it was warm. Not from sunlight. There was no window there. I pulled the corner back carefully. Behind it, the wall wasn't concrete. It was hollow. I pressed my ear against it. Faint movement. Something shifting, slow and deliberate, as though someone were walking behind the plaster. I stepped away, heart pounding, and stared at the wall separating me from 4B. That evening, I decided to record again. I set my phone on the table and left it running for an hour while I sat quietly in the dark. The only light came from the hallway under my door, faint, yellow, unsteady. When I replayed the audio, there it was. Footsteps. Slow dragging. And a new sound. A whisper, but this time, two voices. A man and a woman. One repeating the word, stay. The other whispering something else I couldn't fully make out. It almost sounded like my name. I started leaving notes. Dates, times, short entries. 2:15, tapping from 4B. 3:12, music again. Shorter this time. 4 o'clock, whisper stopped when I turned on the light. By the end of the week, I had filled a page. The pattern was clear, the sounds always started around the same time. Between 2 and 3 in the morning. But on Friday, something changed. The whisper started earlier. And it came from inside my apartment. I was sitting at my desk when I heard the faint scrape of a chair behind me. I turned. My own kitchen chair was slightly moved, just a few inches out of place. I stared at it for a long time, trying to rationalize it. Air vent. Building shift. Gravity. Then it moved again. Just a slow slide across the floor. The whisper followed. Stay. That night, I called Ellis again. Told him he needed to check 4B immediately. He sighed, said he'd come by in the morning. When I woke up, there was a note under my door. No one's supposed to be in 4B. We'll change the locks. Don't worry. I wanted to believe him. But when I opened the door, I saw something taped to the opposite wall, right next to 4B. A small photo. Old, faded. A man standing in a hallway that looked exactly like mine. Same walls, same light fixture. The only difference was the door behind him. It wasn't 4B. It was mine. That night, I covered the peephole with tape. I couldn't stand the idea of someone, or something, looking back. But at 2:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of a soft knock. 3 taps. Slow. Right on my door. Then silence. I waited. Counted seconds. Minutes. Then I heard it again, not from outside. From the wall behind me. Stay. The next night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I set up my phone to record and grabbed a small flashlight. Every instinct screamed to leave, but curiosity, or something darker, kept me moving. I approached 4B slowly. The hallway seemed longer than usual. Every shadow stretched unnaturally, curling along the walls like smoke. The door was closed. No sound. And yet I could feel it, a presence. I knocked lightly. Nothing. A pause. Then a faint creak, like the floorboards inside shifting under weight. I tried the knob. Locked. Of course. I crouched to look through the peephole. The apartment was dark. No furniture moved. No lights on. Yet something was there. A shadow in the corner of the living room, too still to be a trick of the light. I pressed my eye closer. The shadow flickered. Moved just enough for me to catch a glimpse of a figure. Tall. Lean. Head slightly tilted. Facing me. The peephole rattled in my hand. I jumped back. I stepped away and waited. The whisper came again, faint but unmistakable. Stay. This time, it wasn't from the wall. It wasn't from 4B. It was from inside me. I grabbed my phone and played the recording from the past week. The whispering, the music, the tapping, it overlapped in a pattern I hadn't noticed before. And then I saw it. A new frame in the recording I hadn't noticed at first. A single still frame, the shadow across the hall. Standing in my apartment. Looking directly at the camera. I rewound it. The frame repeated. And then another frame, my own silhouette, holding the phone, frozen mid-step. Next frame, the shadow closer, leaning just over my shoulder. I stumbled back, my heart hammering. The door to 4B didn't open. No one was there, officially. But when I turned on my flashlight, the hallway was empty, except the warm light spilling under my door. My apartment. I reached for the knob. The whisper came again. Stay. I didn't want to. I wanted to run, to escape, to leave the building forever. But something kept me rooted. Curiosity. Fear. Habit. And maybe something else. I stepped inside. The apartment smelled faintly of perfume, floral and metallic. Warm footprints led from the living room to the kitchen. Nothing else moved. Yet I could feel it, someone, something, watching. Not just across the hall. Not just in the shadows. Everywhere. I sat on my couch, heart racing, and looked across the hall. Forbies's door was closed. But a faint glow seeped from underneath. And for the first time, I realized. Whatever was in there, it wasn't going to leave. And neither was I.